Right, can we start with the salawat, please? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Got a little bit better, but not that much. And somehow you've all been moving back. Are you scared or something? I mean, it's okay. There's a barrier there with the chairs, but that's up to you. Right. 15th tonight. And it's Kushali Mubarak or Wiladat Mubarak, whatever you want to say. Okay? So it's the Wiladat of Imam Hassan. And I've always felt quite strongly about this, that for every Wiladat and Wafat, even if you don't come to the mosque and you don't go anywhere, you got to read up about them, got to know a little bit about them. Most of us know maybe a little bit about Imam Hussein because of the day of Ashura. Maybe Imam Ali because of the 13th of Rajab, we're sort of up and down and we know bits and pieces. Maybe a little bit about the Prophet. When you ask somebody about Imam Hassan, they go, not quite sure actually. So let's just talk a little bit about him. Now, we've done this for the children, this number thing, and it seems to be working. But for you, maybe, let's start at the beginning. So you're going to look at his life. And if you can divide it, 7, 37, 47. Are you good with that? Can't be that difficult. First grandchild of the Prophet. When he said, Hassanu minni wa ana minal Hassan, we all forgot that because we know Husainu minni wa ana minal Hussein. Okay, so you know now Hassanu minni wa ana minal Hussein. The first akika, as in the removal of hair. I had a Zoom call today and yesterday, and the children asked me, or the young children there asked me, why akika? Why do you have to take your hair off? It's not wajib. But it's highly recommended. The first one was for Imam Hassan. It's basically thank you for life. Because you weigh the hair against gold or silver or whatever you can afford. And then you will give 1/3, you'll feed your family, 1/3 the midwife, and 1/3 to charity. Most people give it all to charity, right? But it's entirely up to you. But it's thank you for life. So the first akika was Imam Hassan. The Prophet smiled, so his teeth were showing. So you can imagine, he was grinning, right? Beautiful name, Hassan. I said divide his life into 3. 7, 37, 47. At the age of 7, he loses the Prophet and his mom. So he becomes an orphan. Remember, he's taken under the, if you can say, under the mentorship of his grandfather, and he dies. And his mom dies as well. At 37, his father dies. So what he does is, now, if you want to think about Imam Hassan, you're talking about somebody who was extremely good at organization, extremely good at working underground. He didn't want to take any credit for anything, but he worked so hard. Where people were against the Ahlul Bayt, he brought them towards them. At 37, when Imam Ali dies, there's a lot of problems going on. So he thinks that the best way forward is to have a ceasefire. You call it a hudna. Hudna is a ceasefire. It's not a peace treaty because you can't make peace with those who are dead set on doing wrong. But you can have a ceasefire. Now, today you and I live in an age where we understand what Imam Hassan was going through. Because when he signed the ceasefire, those who were mean, those who did not understand justice, went absolutely against that ceasefire. In fact, Muawiyah tears it up, puts it under his feet, and he says, that's what I think of it. Although he does sign it too. Now, you and I live in an era where we've seen that happen so much. People talk about ceasefires, but we've never seen them. So he signed the ceasefire. It didn't work. From 37 to 47, he tries really hard to work at this foundation. He was well-groomed. He was, in your language, suited and booted, okay? So somebody people looked up to. He could talk well, and he talked to them really well. He made sure he laid the foundations of what Imam Hussein executed on the day of Ashura. And when they realized that this man is dangerous, and you and I live in an era where people do that, they tried to smear his name a lot. They said he was a womanizer because he looked good. But that's not what he was. In any case, In the end, they thought, we've got to get somebody near. And again, today we live in an era where people do these sort of things. So they got to his wife called Ja'da, and they told her that they would, or Muawiyah said, he would give her lots of money. He would make her the richest woman around. And he would also get her to marry his son if she killed Imam Hassan. And she would do that by poisoning him. Money, position, does a great thing to human beings. When I say great thing, I mean it badly. It does bad things to people. And that's what she did. But Imam Hassan as such laid these foundations for what you and I have today is only because of what he did. If you and I are Husseini, and if you and I believe, and we're in these centers, they call Husseinias, or we call them Imam Barkas, but we're here because of Imam Hassan, because of the hard work he did. But rarely do we mention him. We kind of forget him a little bit, okay? These are just some bits about his character. So people in the street would stop to look at him because they couldn't take his eyes off him. He was known as the Yusuf of Ali Muhammad, okay? They would pick up scraps of bread, they would ask him to join them, and he would. And it reminds me of this wonderful story about this scholar. I can't remember his name offhand. But he used to fast Rajab, Sha'ban, and Ramadan. And in the month of Rajab, when he was fasting, there were people on the streets who were sitting there and said, while he was going to the mosque, and they said, can you join us? And he did. He sat down to eat with them. When he got to the mosque, he sat down and he prayed. And then he sat with everybody who was breaking their fast. And they told him, you're a hypocrite, because we saw you on the way to the mosque. You were eating. He said, I may not be breaking my fast here, but I will never break a heart. And if you look at Imam Hassan, he said the same sort of things. There's a wonderful clip by Sayyid Jawad Amuli where he says, Allah invites you and me to be his guests in the month of Ramadan and in Hajj. You're invited and you are his guests. But he only goes when one person calls him, the one who has a broken heart. So when you look at people who are hurt, don't look down on them. You've got to think about, that's where God goes, or that's where Allah goes. Right, anyway. You all know this story about the incident of the slave girl who dropped some hot food on him. I think you must have heard it 100 times, but I go into it to you again. Instead of getting angry, he said, I forgive you. And he freed her because he quoted the ayah of Quran, that's 3134. You've got it up there. وَالْقَاذِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ وَعَافِينَ النَّاسِ. Those who swallow their anger and those who forgive people. Now, practically for you and me, it's what we do. And this is how you follow Imam Hassan. When you used to recite Quran at home, people used to stop in the streets. Because remember, at that time, houses were such, they weren't like ours. You could hear what is being done inside them. And they would sit and they would stop, and there would be queues outside his house, because people wanted to hear him recite Quran. And every time he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, he read it, he would say, Labbaik. That is understanding the Quran, which we've been talking about all this time, okay? He walked with Imam Hussein to Hajj. They did 20 to 25 Hajj. These are just little things. He led the army. The Prophet would say Hassan and Hussein are Imamain, sitting or standing. He, like I said, he did these strategy decisions. They're known as Sayyid Shababi Ahlil Jannah. He was big brother. He looked after all the others. Remember, after his mom and dad died, in fact, after his mom died, he looked after all of them. He's known as Kareem Ali Muhammad. Kareem, we did that in Asma al-Husna, but Kareem is one who is extremely generous, extremely generous. And you know, there's an ayah of Quran which you read, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu. We actually did it in the last few days. Oh, human beings, we have made you from one man and one woman, and we've made you into tribes and communities, so that in diversity you recognize each other. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The most honored, the most generous, the one whom Allah is most generous to, the one most honored in the eyes of Allah, is the one who is God conscious. And this is what Imam Hassan did. So good time today to look up his seerah, read about him. I'm sure you could find books. I mean, go into a search engine, go Google him, and you'll find all about him. Back to Dua al-Mujir. Tonight is the last night of Ayyamul Bid, or the last night when you will read Dua al-Mujir. So hopefully, I hope, today and tomorrow, you will read it. If you cannot read it, listen to it. There are 2 renditions of it. One of them is a bit of a slow rendition. It takes about 28 minutes. That's Abadar. You all know Abadar, right? There is another rendition, I think I've put it on the QF updates group, which is 10 minutes less. So if you feel you can't read it slowly or listen to it slowly, listen to it quickly. And if you can't do that, then at least do as many times as possible Ya Mujir, tonight and tomorrow. You're talking about asking for protection, you're asking about forgiveness, okay? So that's Dua al-Mujir. We talked about it a lot. If you can manage, then this is 88 times. Ajirna minan nari ya Mujir. Even in your kunut, you're praying salah. And I know you read Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. That's what most people do. Well, at least tonight, Ajirna minan nari ya Mujir. Say it a few times. Say it often. I asked you to annotate it. I talked about this yesterday. I talked about the effects of the moon. I'd like to quickly go over these. We went over the 3 R's. Do you remember? Rahman, Rahim, and? Oh my goodness, you're getting good at this. I went through those du'as with you. The 4 F's, do you remember them? Ghafar, Ghafur, Tawab, and Afu. Okay, well done. And we talked about the ayah 3953 yesterday. I talked about Jabbar. Ya Jabbar or Juburni again and again if you feel broken, whether it's your heart or your head or your mind or anything. Ya Jabbar or Juburni. We talked about RM, which was Razak and Muqit. I talked about it for the last 2 days. Ali, the Most High. That is why in Sajda you say, what do you say? Subhana Rabbiyal A'ala. At your lowest position, you're talking to the highest one. Remember when the ayah of Quran was revealed, Sabbih isma rabbikal a'la, the Prophet said, Ij'al fi sujudikum, put it in your sajda. So think of a'la when you go into sujood. The Most High is listening to you, okay? Higher than anything you imagine him to be. We talked about Mujib. I told you the 2 names that were near Mujib. Do you remember? I told you the one in Asma'ul Husna. Come on, you can't forget that quickly. Qareeb and? Any idea? That one. Mannan. Every time you think of Qareeb, Mujib, you think of Qareeb and Mannan. And Mannan is unlimited, uninterrupted, unasked, and unconditional. There's nobody who doesn't want this. And if you read Dua al-Mujir, you will see Ya Hannanu Ya Mannan. And if you see some du'as, you will see Ya Hannan, Ya Mannan, Ya Badi'us Samawati wal Ard. I mean, go for it. Read them. Okay, let's go back. Went to Mujib. We talked about Wasi yesterday. Can't find parking? Wasi. Wasi is expansive, unlimited, infinite. We talked about Hayyul Qayyum. I also talked about Wahid, Ahad, and Samad. And in particular that dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka bi annaka anta Allahu la ilaha illa ant al-ahadus samad alladhi lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Now you see it's got parts of Suratul Ikhlas. Suratul Ikhlas and Suratul Kafirun. If you put them together, they're known as Mukashkish. Okay, the way my children remember it, they say Mishkaki. So, again, Suratul Ikhlas and Suratul Kafirun. Put together, they're Mukashkish. If you are ill, if you've got a problem, recite these 2. And they will heal you. That's why they're known as Mukashkish, okay? All right, Qabith, we talked about this. You remember we talked about 20, 40, 60, and 80. You remember that? When you're 20, what you want to do? You want to fit into a size 2, right? I said 6 yesterday. When you're 40, you think, now I'm a bit accountable. When you're 60, you want to live forever. And when you're 80, you start doing tawbah, if you get to that age, okay? So you know 20, 40, 60, 80. What's 20? Squeezing. 40, accountability. 60, living forever. 80, tawbah. Oh, come on. You're supposed to know these numbers. Go back. 20, you want to squeeze into something small. 40, you want to be accountable. 60, you want to live forever. 80, you want to do tawbah. So you'll know the names of those. So if I said 20 now, even if you said squeeze, I'm good. Because you've got Qabith, right? Dhul Jalali wal Ikram. Again, an Isme A'zam. Forget everything else. You know Dhul Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. You're done. These are, as the kids call it, magical names. I call them names with so much energy and so much in them. Just hope we understand them, okay? We talked about JGM, which was just give me. The Jama' or Jami is to gather up all your strategies. You can't become rich in anything in life unless you have a strategy, okay? The Ghani is to be rich, but there is a reason. You know, when you say, I want lots of money, or I want a big heart, or I want to be clever, or I want to be spiritually astute, all of these must be attached to Mughni. You must be able to enrich others. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, all my life I've wanted money. And say, okay, fine, but what are you going to do with it? You can only sleep so much. You can only eat so much. You can only wear so much. What else do you do with money? What? Tell me. In fact, you find people who are wealthier eat less. They eat lettuce. They don't have chips. Sorry. Okay. Their clothes are much smaller, so they wear less clothes. I mean, what do you do? What are you going to do with it? Okay, you may have some left and you might keep it for, I don't know. For what rainy day? Tell me. So to be rich must be a purpose. You must want to enrich others. That is why Ghani and Mughni are together. Can you imagine for a minute, if one of your children, I see children toddling around all the time, if one of your children said, I want some water, what would you do? What would you do? Any child, not even yours, any child came up and said, I want some water. You would get up and get that child some water. So I have all this money and all this jewelry in a bank, and I've got children in the world hungry and thirsty. Really? Are you serious? Can you, just for a minute, close your eyes and think, what am I doing? What's going on with me? And that is why these names are so important. You must have a reason of why you want to be rich in whatever, body, mind, whatever. You want to be able to share it, right? Nur, 93 in the Quran is Surah Al-Duha. Here it is Nur. Because Dua Mujir is full of Nur, and these days, these 3 days are known as energizing days, then Nur is not only light, Nur is energy. It energizes you, right? You read in, after Ayatul Kursi, there are 2 ayat. People used to read 255 up to 257. يُخْرِجُهُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى Nur. There are lots of darknesses, but there's only one light. There is only one energy. So recommended in these energizing days to read Ya Nur as much as possible. The last of Asma al-Husna is known as Sabur. And people talk about Sabr a lot. But Sabr is literally self-restraint. We learn a lot of Sabr in the month of Ramadan. You see all this food and you keep away from it. You see water, you keep away from it. Something in you tells you, I have to restrain myself, right? So Sabur is a good one. When you have difficulty, when you have pain, to recite Ya Sabur is good. We talked about Mannan. I love this tongue twister. Man manna min mannim munna min al mannan. It's absolutely beautiful, which actually means whoever gives from the gifts of God shall be rewarded from the ever-giving. Exactly, Ghani and Mughni. So when I first came across it, it just had a line, 6 ma and nas, and then a mannan. So it had to put the fatha kasras in, and that was a challenge in itself. Because you looked at it and you thought, oh my goodness, what is that trying to say? So it took a lot of days to sort of work out what it was trying to say. So please remember it. It's really lovely. It's a bit of a tongue twister. 6 months and a mannan. Okay, so you know what mannan is about. Now you've got this here. Yes, and I told you yesterday, I've got them here. I still do this. I fill one of these every single day. And that's the only way I know 1 to 99. And it's been 11 years since we started Asma al-Husna. So it's not something that I leave to do. Even if I'm tired at the end of the day, I will fill in one of these. Which means that I would know 1 to 99. Okay? And I hope when I die and that angel says, what will you do? And I said, I did that. Okay? That's 1 to 99. So if you want them, they're here. So we got to 25. I've still got a few minutes. And I'll go to Hujurat in a minute. 26 and 27 are Sami and Basir. Sami, he hears everything. That is why in Salah you say, Sami Allahu liman hamida. He listens to he who praises and who is thankful to him. When you're doing a dua, Ya Sami, hear me. I don't know how to verbalize myself. It's quite difficult for me to tell you what I'm looking for. But Ya Sami, Ya Basir, you see everything. You see that tear in the middle of the night. You see me hurt. You see my heart. And I don't know what to do about it. So use Ya Sami and Basir over there. Hakam is, Hakim is a judge. And I know here it says the judge. But Hakam is literally someone who will execute justice. And maybe that's why we put the judge down there, right? Then you've got Adl. And yesterday I talked about Adl and Qist, and I'll add on Hakam here as well. But Adl is like a general justice, or general, if I can say, Adala. I don't know what you call Adala, whatever way you put it. But Adala in essence is somebody who's just, but yesterday I told you it is part of contracts, it is part of legal documents. Qist is personalized. Okay, so Adl here is 29. Then you have Latif and Khabir. Latif is someone who is really subtle. You'd never know that a pearl came out of an oyster. And you'd never know that the pearl was actually a grain of sand that was bugging the oyster so much that it covers it with luster. If you looked at a bee, would you actually think that honey came from a bee? I don't know how many of you like silk, but silk actually comes from a silkworm. It's actually the pupa, the cocoon of a silkworm, and it's unwinded, and that's where you get silk from. Prophet Yaqub uses this a lot, and so does Prophet Yusuf. So if you look at Surah number 12, you will see Latif coming up a lot. And you want lutf. When something happens that you can't reverse and you don't like, then there is a dua where you say, Ya Allah, I'm not asking you to reverse your decision, because that's hard for him to do. But show me the lutf in it. Show me what is the goodness in what you've said. In our language, you would say, show me the silver lining in the cloud. And I remember that dua very much. Now maybe you will remember it a bit more. When my first grandchild was born, and she couldn't breathe, and she subsequently has got severe cerebral palsy, I couldn't understand. I just couldn't understand why a child would have to go through that. And I remember my teacher telling me this dua. And he said, you can't reverse decisions, but you can ask for him for the lutf. And the lutf, and I've repeated this, I repeat it again, came to me many, many years later. And I'm saying she was about, 1.5, 2 years old. And we used to go to therapy. And I've told you this before, I'll repeat it again. And I remember sitting near someone who couldn't even blink, couldn't even close and open his eyelids. And his dad used to close and open his eyelids for him. And he would always tell me, I sit near him because I used to watch my daughter and my granddaughter have their therapy or whatever. And he would say, this is my greatest blessing. And I would say, how so? He can't even close his eyelids. And he would say, every time somebody looks at my child, they think of God. Because they will either say, thank you, God, for everything you've given me, or they will pray for my child. He said, who has a child who inspires people to think of God? And he says, you know what? My child will go to paradise. He wasn't a Muslim. And when he goes to paradise, he's not going to go without me. And when I looked at that, that taught me a lesson. So this dua, whenever things go wrong in life, just say, Ya Allah, I'm not asking you to reverse your decision, because I know you won't. But show me the goodness in what you've done. So Ya Latif all the time. Ya Khabir, he knows everything. He knows what you think, what you say, what you do. You can't mess around. You can't say, maybe he doesn't know. He does. And you know as well. You know, it's really sad when you see people say things like, I'm going here because they'll feel bad if I don't go. Your intention and action are completely different. Or when you say, Assalamu alaikum, and then you want to stab them in the back. It doesn't work like that. I was telling somebody the other day, and I repeat it because you've got children who will grow up and get married. I remember once coming to a wedding, and I saw the mother of I think it was the bride. I'm not sure. The mother of the bride or the groom. And she was where the shoes are. The place was absolutely packed. All these people had come here. And she had her maid with her. Or I don't know what you call them. Helper, maid, whatever you want to say. And I was just about to walk up to her to congratulate her. And she didn't see me. I was standing at the back because I was waiting for her to finish. You know, in weddings, people get dressed up and they have to do their hair and all the rest of it. And please do it. Don't do it, okay? So she was doing that. And she's telling her maid, can you today keep the riffraff away from me? And I felt so bad. I felt so bad because I thought, excuse me, all these people who are here have taken their time to come and celebrate with you. I walked away. I couldn't go. Riffraff, are you serious? So when you say khabir, he knows and you know as well. That cannot be your intention. It just cannot. When people come to a wedding or people come to a funeral, they come because they care. They come to celebrate that occasion for you, or they come there to be able to, to see condolences. So Khabir is very strong. He knows. You can't mess around with him, okay? The next one is Halim, and I love Halim. I'll stop there because I want to go to Hujarat. Halim, do you know what khichdi is? You know what khichdi is? You know what Halim is, don't you? You know what Halim is, you know what khichdi is. It's really soft. When your teeth are hurting, when you can't eat, you have Halim or you have khichdi. That's Halim. He is that soft. When you find the world's becoming hard on you, call him. Say, yeah, Halim, I can't handle this. We'll go into this some other time. But this is what I want to go in today. This is where we stopped with Surah Al-Hujarat. 3 sections. The first section was respect to the Prophet. I told you if you respect the Prophet, if you respect the Quran, if you respect the center, if you respect people in the center, it translates into how you behave in the community. And we did these 10. The first one is when you get information, verify it. The second one is take guidance from the Quran and nobody else. The third one is it is your obligation to make peace between those who fight. The fourth one is Muslims are blood brothers or blood sisters. The fifth one is don't make fun of others. Sixth, don't find faults. Seventh, don't call people names. Eighth, don't make assumptions. Ninth, don't spy on others. And 10, don't backbite. And then we'll do the third section, inshallah, tomorrow. And from tomorrow, we will start preparation for Laylatul Qadr. So if I were you, I'd bring a pen and a paper, and you can write things down, okay? So can we end with the Surah Al-Fatiha? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Sadaqallahu